Okay, in the last video, we got our first look at VS Code, which is a tool that we're going to use in order to help us develop a lot faster. So now I want to go a little bit further into VS Code just for a few things that are going to help us get started. And for that, we're going to do some sort of like recipe web page. So right now I have this one for sesame chicken recipe, and you can see that it looks really underwhelming, just like how we did in the first page that we made. So I want to first start by talking about some project structure. Now, what I mean by that is we can't just have all of our HTML files thrown around on the desktop because that's just really unorganized. So I'm going to go into Finder, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Developer, and this is just going to house all of our various web projects. And then inside there, I'm going to make a new folder called Recipes. I'll just call it, yeah, let's call it Recipes for now. And I'm going to take this Sesame Chicken file and I'm going to drop it into the recipes folder. So now we have a folder structure where we're going to house all our projects and specifically this recipes project. Now I'm going to open VS Code and I'll open that particular folder. So that's in my developer, recipes, and I'll click open. Okay, so I want to just go a little bit more into like the different tools and things that we have here in VS Code, just as like just for the basics. So first of all, you see here that we have several tabs. Um, if I open a file here, you can see that I have the file open. I can have multiple files open at once, which we'll get into. And here is the just the general source code for the file. And you can see that obviously I have line numbers. Here I have a line that actually it's only one line long because there's no new line in between, but it takes up 3 lines visually. There's a setting for that. And to get to the settings, you can hold Command, Shift, and P, and that'll bring up the command palette here where there's just a ton of different commands that you can enter. But I think the easiest thing to do would just be to go to Preferences and then just type UI. It does something called a fuzzy search, which means it just has to match letters basically in order, and it can figure out what you're trying to do. So I'll click that, and I'm going to look specifically for a setting about wrapping. So let's see if we can figure out what that is. We have word wrap. So that might be off for you as the default. I've switched it to on. So that's why in my editor you'll see that it wraps this way instead of being one long continuous line that scrolls off the screen. So that's the first thing. And the other thing I want to show you is, so the left-hand side here, this area is the document explorer. So if you had multiple documents in your project, which we will eventually, so those will all show up over here. And then you also have a search and like a search or search and replace functionality over here. So if I search for the word sesame, even as I type, it automatically is sort of showing me all the different results here. So I can jump to those quickly. And then if I wanted to, I can also replace. So that's pretty basic functionality over there. And then there's some other tools here. One is about source control, which we will definitely have to dive into in this series, but we won't dive into that now. And then there's one for running and debugging. We won't talk about that now either. And then extensions where you can add other functionality to VS Code that's not built in. And we will spend time installing software from here into our VS Code IDE. And so the other thing is, since I only have one file here, I'm not going to be using this too much, so I'll minimize that on the left here. And finally, because the font is so small, I'll bump that up. I'll hold Command and plus, and then I'll bump up the font a little bit to make it a little bit more legible for everybody. So the next thing that I really wanted to do was nothing that we haven't already seen before, but I'll just try to build out the sesame chicken recipe to something that will be, more appropriate for a web page. So let's go ahead and do that. We already spoke about how we can do that. So rather than typing the HTML manually, like we learned how to do it, I can just type in HTML here. And there's a little snippet over here called HTML:5 for HTML5 syntax, and it'll automatically populate for us the standard boilerplate template code for an HTML document. And I'm going to take all of the rest, so I'll hold Shift, Command, and down. So I'll cut that out from over there, and I'll paste it in the body, because we know that the body is what holds the stuff that's going to be rendered on the web page. So if I save the file, now I got to go figure out how to open it. So I'll open it this way into Safari, and I will put that side by side with my code here. And I probably need a little bit less space for the actual browser, so I'll just split screen that way. Okay, cool. So like we said, I can change the title here to be Sesame Chicken. I'll save that, and I'll refresh over here, and notice right here in the tab bar, I refresh, and now it says Sesame Chicken, so we fixed that part. And now I'm just going to go quickly put HTML markup for all the rest of the main content here. So it should be pretty straightforward. We have here an H1, and it's helpfully, it's trying to put for me the closing tag, but I'm going to have to mostly cut it out and paste it towards the end. So I'll save that, refresh over here, and we can start to get the feel for our web page. Here is, of course, going to be an image to, I found a nice Sesame Chicken image on the internet. And image is a self-closing tag like we've already talked about. And here we have a paragraph. Again, it's trying to be extra helpful with putting the closing tag, but I don't need that now, so I'll just paste it at the end. Save, and I know that I'm going to want this image to be a lot smaller because I've already tried this out. So let's just make the height be 200 pixels, 200 like that. Okay, and here we have ingredients. I'd call this probably an H2 because it's a secondary level heading. It's not as big of a heading or like as important of a heading as the title of our page. So I'll just make that H2. And after the ingredients, I have actually a bunch of sections of the different ingredients. So I'll come back to that one. But for now, I'll make another H2 now for like the next section, which will be for the instructions. And then finally, we have all the instructions. So that'll sort of give us the main scaffolding. So let me save that and refresh over here, and hopefully we get something looking a little bit better. So we have a couple of different sections here. So I want to give you just like sort of one last major feature of VS Code, and honestly a lot of IDEs. It's not just specific to VS Code, but I'll show it to you here. Is that you can have multiple cursors at one time. By cursor I mean this little blinking thing that's that's indicating where I'm typing next. So let me show you what I mean by that. So here in the ingredients section, we have lists of the various ingredients here. But I know that I'm gonna want all of like these sections, like general, marinade, the different sections of my ingredients, I'm going to want those to be H3s for now. And, whether or not that's the right semantics, we can have a discussion for another time, but that's what I'm going to choose to do. But I don't want to have to type here H3 and then closing H3 and then do it again here and do it again here and do it again here. There's an easier way. I can hold the Option key and click wherever I want to add multiple cursors. So if you see now, I have 4 blinking cursors, 1, 2, 3, 4 for each of the sections, and I'm going to start typing. So I'll type H3 and I'll close that. And then again, it's adding this one. Now I'm going to cut it out on my clipboard with Command X. And now you can see, so the thing is how many times we'll have to press the arrow key to get to the end of the line to put the closing H3. Well, I can't really do it any specific number of times, but if I hold the Command key and press the right arrow, I can go all the way to the end of the line, which is what I want. And then I will paste all those, the closing H3s there. Or I could have typed it out manually, it's the same thing. So now I can save that and refresh over here. And now it's starting to make a little bit more sense. And let's just continue that again. So let me, like another trick is I can select this word H, like closing H3, and I can hold Command and press D, and it'll start to continue to select multiple instances of the same piece of text. And I'm doing that so that I can then make a new line, and you see I'm making multiple new lines, and I'm going to start adding an unordered list for our ingredients. Now I can cut those out, and I want to paste them, but they all have a different number of lines, so I can't really just like use the down arrow to go down. I don't really know an easy way to get to the bottom of each list, but for now I'll just click there manually and then hold the Option key again to create new cursors, and I will put the closing UL tags. And you see that VS Code automatically figured out that because I opened a UL tag and now I'm trying to close one, it has to close the one that's opened. And I'll just make a new line for visual separation. So I'll save that. And now the last thing to do is to put an LI in the front of each of these. Now again, I don't really know why, so I'm just going to manually hold the Option key and click each one of these list items. And I'll open an LI, close it. I'm going to hold Shift to grab all this stuff, cut it out, hold Command and right arrow to jump to the end of each line, and I'll paste. And you'll see that I just basically saved myself a lot of time from having to do each one of those individually, and now I have ingredients that look a lot more reasonable. And finally, we have all of our instructions down here. This is going to be pretty straightforward. It's just, actually, this time it's an ordered list, not an unordered list. So I'll put OL because the instructions are ordered. I mean, there's a specific order to the instructions. And each one of these paragraphs is going to get an LI. So I don't need there's no like specific list item for ordered lists or unordered lists. It's just because it already knows that it's within a list, it knows what type to be. So I'll show you what that means. I'll make an LI. Again, I'll cut that out, jump to the end of the line, and paste. And now let's see what happened. So now in the instructions, I got all of those instructions automatically numbered for me just because I put it in an ordered list. So that's basically what I wanted to show in this video. And in a coming video, I kind of want to talk about how we can style this a little bit better to make it a little bit more interesting, visually interesting of a page. Not everything has to be the bare bones visual style that your browsers give you by default. But I just wanted to get that general scaffolding out of the way. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please give this video a thumbs up because that encourages me to continue making more. And also feel free to leave any comments if you have questions. I will look at every single comment and I will do my best to answer them. And if you want to make sure that you get all the videos coming up, go ahead and click that subscribe button and I'll see you on the next one.